Good evening. My name is Tony Wagner, and I am the Chief Development Officer here at the School of Public Health at the University of Michigan. It's my pleasure to welcome you tonight. Thank you for being here as we kick off the fourth year of our Student to Alumni Network Mentoring Program. We appreciate how each of you stepped up to serve in this important role as an alumni mentor, sharing your experiences and guidance with students as they navigate key decisions in their public health journey. Students and alumni often share with us the importance of the relationships they form while at SPH, many continuing well past graduation and some lasting a lifetime. To continue supporting the Michigan public health community in the development of these meaningful connections, we created the Student to Alumni Mentoring Program, which is the first school-wide mentoring program available to all SPH students and alumni. This wouldn't be possible without the support of the terrific partners and our talented, passionate community of alumni. Tonight, we will have a special opportunity to meet several members of our leadership team, learn about the work we are doing to prepare and support the next generation of public health leaders, and hear from a recent alumni mentor and student mentee about their experience. Our first guest tonight is Dr. Sharon Cardia, who serves as the Senior Associate Dean for Education. Sharon oversees the coordination, evaluation, and continuous improvement of several areas such as curriculum, teaching effectiveness, and faculty teaching support. Her team is currently reinvigorating the SPH core curriculum to help students prepare for the growing public health needs, a change directly responsive to student need and alumni feedback. So please join me in welcoming my friend, Dr. Sharon Cardia.
Thank you, Tony. I'm so excited to be here. In many ways, what I'm going to talk about started with talking with alumni, talking with our Dean's Advisory Board, some of our sort of esteemed alumni who are giving us feedback on a regular basis about how we're doing, how we could do it better. And one of the key things that we had been talking about, especially as the pandemic started to really sort of take its grips on the world, was how incredibly lucky we were to have public health degrees. And in many ways, how much more we could do if we really took this time to think about what do our students really need for this workforce of the 21st century, where pandemics are happening much more frequently, as the workforce is changing. I mean, I think all of us had to learn new skills as we were figuring out sort of how to manage Zoom, remote work, while also doing things, in many ways, the same as always. So as we took stock of where we are, many of us had known that looking towards the workforce data, for instance, and what do employers need would be a great place to start. And I don't know if we can get that first slide. So working with our Office of Practice and also sort of key indicators like the de Beaumont reports, we started to actually think through what are the strategic skills, the transferable skills that we perhaps were not teaching in biostatistics or epidemiology. Here's just a chart of some of the rankings that, key skills people thought they didn't really get, but really needed. And surprisingly, I think to many, budget and financial management, systems and strategic thinking, community engagement being sort of that top tier. And many of our departments don't focus on those issues. Some certainly do, but not uniformly across our masters of public health. And so this was the kind of, I'll call it, starting place where we took stock and really have now set the revised core on a trajectory that will integrate many of these topics inside of a different way of teaching. Go to the next slide, please. Because not only were we sort of talking to and listening to our alumni and our practice partners, but we also needed to take into account what was the student experience. The pandemic, I think, really elevated students' isolation, anxiety, and that there were ways in which the student experience of the last several years heightened for us, and that we really needed ways in which we could help students identify their assets, what they bring from their experiences. Many of our great students have, years of volunteering, actually already being in departments of health or governmental agencies or nonprofits. And so what we decided to focus on was how could we build a learning environment that the courses would build community. And as those courses were building community, we would be figuring out the ways to get continuous feedback and create opportunities for student leadership, which is actually one of the core competencies, leadership, that we want our students to be practicing almost from day one. Because if you think about any job in public health these days, one of the key things is initiative and finding out what you don't know to solve the problem of today. And getting that to be the norm for our students, transferring them from, let's say, an undergraduate model where here we teach you the material and you tell us that you've understood it. We need to actually, I think, raise the level for all of us. So, if I could have the next slide, please. One of the sort of fundamental changes that we've decided to put in place for our core MPH curriculum is to have it be project based rather than lecture based. What that means is that we will be providing the students videos, readings, and mini lectures on the key topics that form basically a whole trajectory of engagement around public health issues. And this project based learning is a way to actually get students to see the long game. Like, we need to really address this big issue that's much bigger than all of us. Let's say it's climate change. Let's say it's food insecurity in some of our cities. That's a big problem. Well, if we can focus them on that big problem of, today by giving them a concrete task, a public product that, let's say, somebody within a public health department would create. Um, we're going to have them in the fall create public health reports that go through a particular problem in a particular city, county, or state, where they have to go in and actually know something about the demographics, the social determinants of health. What are some of the key policies at play in that state or that the federal level is influencing? If you could keep it back to there we go. Thank you. Um, so that the students can actually throughout the semester be engaging with the question of how do we get the information, how do we communicate it, and how do we start to build our map of what that big, some people would call it wicked problem, and get the power of teammates. So we'll be doing this in teams as well as feedback from faculty to move them into, I think, much more of the driver's seat where you have to rely on what you know and how you do things. And then they'll be ready for that internship in the summer and then the next year ready for the workforce. Could I have the next slide, please? In order to do this well, working on projects, we needed to actually shift our mindset as faculty from, let's say, the disciplinary focus, like here's the biostats course, here's the epidemiology course, here's the health behavior course, here's the nutrition course, to actually starting to work together to give students the knowledge, the skills, the abilities to view from these different disciplines, but integrated towards this public health issue that we're asking them to start to understand, unpack. And, in the winter semester, we're going to ask them to actually come up and develop some solutions that they're going to propose in a program plan. So this tree is an artistic representation of how some of the departments are pairing together for the fall term and the winter term. And then another key feature of this that I alluded to is the building of these strategic and transferable skills around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Wellness, we really are focused right now on developing some integrated curriculum that will build people's professional and personal resilience. If you think about what we've just gone through, resilience has been one of the most important and valued attributes of the public health workforce. I mean, they have been through the ringer. So, for us to be able to help students understand internally and then inside of a team and a larger organization, what does resilience look like? We feel is a kind of I'll call it an ethical imperative that we as educators help students to make that a part of their toolkit. There's many other things in here like leadership or negotiation or advocacy that when it's placed inside of the work that they're doing becomes an opportunity for them to really, I'm going to say, shine in some of their key areas. And if we can go to the next slide, um, we tried to figure out how to do this in a way that would create a natural, I'll call it narrative arc for the students, as well as we're hoping later on to be involving external partners in this process. But to do what I just described, we tried many different versions of how we're going to get little courses together and decided actually to create basically two courses, one in the fall and the one in the winter, that are 6 credits, which is actually 6 hours per week, that will have both lecture and lab. And we'll be focusing on how do you identify a public health problem? What are the sources of information from the CDC, from the county health rankings, from the state government that we can pull into the problem, I'll call it unpacking, as well as description about the local landscape in order to identify sort of key factors. This is where sort of pulling the students into the literature and understanding what is the epidemiological evidence, how do they interpret the biostatistical analysis in order to then really position them to do some of their own analysis. And that's going to be one of the key things in the fall course we ask everybody to do. And we're going to pull from either the census, the behavioral risk factor surveillance survey. They're going to all learn R, which is a free open statistical software that's very powerful and would allow everybody to have both the broad view as well as the deep skills to start to engage in, solving public health issues. Then the winter, after that foundation in the fall has been laid, they're going to be looking at policy development and interventions through the lens of, how do you write a good program plan that is engaged with the key stakeholders, and how might you evaluate those policies and those plans and advocate for them. So they're going to have to develop advocacy plans, and we're going to move some of the work that they're doing here into communication out, like Twitter feeds through the CDC or other kind of communications out to partners. We are really, really excited about this curriculum because it's the first time that I think all of the faculty have been able to say, we can be a part of solving this century's public health issues by centering that work inside of the School of Public Health's learning environment. Next slide, please. So this is a big change for us. And um, we have sort of many aspirations about what we could be doing in this. But to start, we're going to have to kind of focus and get good at this project based learning. And what we've decided to do is to start with 8 to 10 different team project areas. We're going to talk with the students about like why they're coming to public health. We already started to develop a survey, and we piloted that this past summer. And many of the reasons they're coming into public health are the key reasons that all of us are in public health today, or are really looking to this next generation to help with. And I mentioned some of them, like climate change and food insecurity, but there's also other ones that our students today are very interested in. Healthcare access, for instance, mental health, especially on college campuses, but for people that are in what I think of as the mid of their lives, that 20 to 50 range, there seems to be a lot of interest in our students on helping families that are under a lot of stress. But we will work with them, and I actually want to ask you what you think we should be working on, um, because as we start to work inside of these projects, I think what we'll be also doing is understanding our gaps, and as well understanding how we might be able to start to reach out to others. And these are the 3 phases that I am envisioning for this core. The first is that we're working on well described team projects inside of the classroom. The second phase is that we'd like to engage alumni in both creating that list of projects, but then also getting your feedback to the students. So we might do something like a gallery walk of what they have created in their public health report. Maybe it's a poster session. We've found these great technological ways to invite people in that they can actually give feedback to students. Or, for instance, another thing that is really, really important to our students is to hear what it's like inside of your lives as working professionals. So pulling you in as supports to the students' sort of dreams of working in public health, so they have people to talk with inside of the fall and the winter semester around some of the hurdles or the walls that they're hitting. Again, going back to this idea of resilience, many of us find resilience by our support networks. We're not trying to do this alone. Public health has never been done alone, but getting the kind of more experienced voice and view can make all the difference to a young person who is thinking, oh my gosh, I'm failing because I'm not making progress on this big problem. Where many of us think, oh my gosh, just even starting to understand this problem in your geographical location is a step forward. That perspective means a ton. The last phase of this is a dream of working with external agencies, government agencies, to solicit projects and for those agencies to be working with the students. This is done in engineering, in the Ross Business School, in our sustainability and the environment school. It feels like the time is ripe for us to, as a school, move towards a curriculum that will allow our students to work much closer to the ground of these big public health issues. And so I hope that you've gotten a bit of a view of the big changes that are coming our way. And we would love for your insight. You know, what do you think are the most important topics for students to be pursuing in their team projects? And, you know, might you think of some additional ways for alumni to become involved in this project-based learning environment that we're starting? So thank you so much. Tony, back to you.
Thank you, Sharon, for the work you're doing, for the work you and your team are doing to prepare our students for the public health challenges of today and for the future, and for being here tonight. Sharon, I know I speak for a lot of folks. You've impacted hundreds of alumni, and we're grateful for your long time dedication to Michigan public health. So thank you for being here, Sharon.
Thank you.
In addition to the evolving curriculum, students are able to connect with meaningful support and resources at Michigan Public Health. Mariana Nadef is a board-certified career coach and leads the career services team here at the School of Public Health, ensuring that students are given the support and tools they need as they navigate important career and professional decisions. Mariana has been at the School of Public Health for nearly a year and a half and previously served in a similar role at the Ellis-Sinay Opportunity Hub. So please join me in welcoming my colleague, Mariana Nadef.
Thank you so much, Tony. I'm excited to be here to talk with all of you and to thank you for the important work that you're doing with our students in mentorship capacities. I'm also excited to build on the conversation that Sharon was bringing up about preparing students for the workforce. And our office, the Careers Office, has been doing a lot of work to innovate and prepare our students for the workforce. So we support our students anywhere from career exploration to their application materials, to the job search, to negotiations. And we also support you as alumni as well. So we have some important resources that we have available to students and alumni. The first is our careers portal. And you can see an example of this in the image on the screen. Our careers portal is the main space that we use to interact with our students. This is the space that you can go into to make appointments, to check out what postings we have available, to check out what workshops are going on, and to also sign up for recruiting events with our employers. We'll share a link to that in the comments as well. We also have our career coaching, and that includes appointments that are available as well as drop-ins. And our appointments are typically 45 minutes as well as 30-minute options on a variety of topics. And drop-ins as well, they can be 25 minutes and really great for options for students to not have pre-scheduled appointments. We have great workshops that we not only do in a synchronous way, but also we record them to be available on demand in our resource site, which we'll describe here in a little bit. So our workshops, again, are on a variety of topics, anything from resume, cover letter, personal statements, negotiations, interview prep, all of these different topics. And they are available for you to view as well as to send to your students to give them support in your discussions around mentorship and for our students to engage in. We have employer events, as I discussed. We bring in a variety of employers that are so excited to hire our students and alumni as well. We currently are hosting a variety of events, from coffee chats to interview sessions to more info sessions around a certain organization and what positions they may have available. This gives students opportunities to learn more about the company organization and to ask questions up front that will help them make decisions in supporting their career decisions. We also have a resource site, which this is a fairly new tool that we have created. The resource site is full of all of these tools that we have available that are interactive on various career development topics, as well as those on-demand workshops that we discussed before. So these are available again to you. You can send them to your students. The resource site will be in the chat as well, and we really, really encourage you to send it out. It's probably the main site that we would recommend to start with because it has links out to everything else, including that careers portal as well. So as you all may know, we have a lot of great programs at the School of Public Health. Some of you are from these programs and some of you have students that you're mentoring in the program. So we know that also, if we can go to the next slide, it's not only the programs that we have available, but our students are really interested in different focus areas. And pro tip, in Michigan Public Health Connect, you can actually filter out the different focus areas of interest for yourself as alumni and students. And you'll see there's some examples listed on the screen. So we know it's not only the program that matters for students, but also their specific focus areas of topic. So And in addition, you'll see some icons about employers that have hired our students. It's a variety. We have for-profit, we have hospital settings, we have NGOs. We have such a variety, and we're constantly expanding and talking to employers about engaging with our students and alumni. So it's really exciting to see how students the interest that they have and where they are looking to work and get engaged with. Sometimes they come to us and tell us they want to work for a specific employer. We help them get connected to that employer, or employers come to us as well. Okay, so it's important to talk about career outcomes. So it's really exciting that in our most recent year of career placement data, we understand that 99% of our recent graduates are employed or pursuing an advanced degree. This is exciting for us. We know that our students are highly desired, and we know that we have opportunities available for them. You can see in the image that we have a variety of employer types, the most common being a university or college, and then a hospital or healthcare setting. And from there, quite a variety of different organizations that are hiring. So different sectors and industries, different focus areas. Public health is a beautiful degree in the sense that it has a wide variety of possibilities. All right, so let's talk about how important mentorship is to support career development. In our office, we get the exciting opportunity to meet with students often, and we hear from them how nervous they are about their career decisions and how they feel like they're behind and insecure about possibly nonlinear paths. Sometimes they feel like they need to have made the right decisions every single time in order to be successful. And so when they get paired up with someone like you, it's great because they get to hear about how professional journeys can vary and how it still leads to successful professional pursuits. So, career development is no longer about what do you want to be when you grow up? It's more about what problems do you want to solve? And those are conversations that we're hearing you're having with our students, and it's making them feel much more confident in their decisions and again, in their degree and for their plans for after graduating from the School of Public Health. We also hear that students are really excited about the mentorship they get from you because they can get some of their materials reviewed. They can, of course, come to our office and you can leverage that in those appointments or those drop-ins that we have. But they really like hearing from you as industry experts and how their resume and their cover letters and their personal statements might stack up. And from that expertise, again, that you have as an individual in the field. So they are very grateful for that. And we're glad that you are willing to give those supports. And we also know, too, just as a reminder, if you need some of those tools to send to those students to give them specific tips to just further support the advice you're giving, those are available on that resource site that we mentioned. So just a reminder, these career supports, most of them are available to you as well. So support for you, that careers resource site, those recorded workshops, those tools, those tips. The careers portal is also available for you. There are postings on there, there are workshops, again, employer events, there are appointments that you can get connected to. And then we also have some great LinkedIn pages that you can do some networking with specific departmental groups or the main SPH alumni group. As far as support for other students, you can post opportunities you might have available for students, internships, jobs, volunteer project opportunities through our careers portal. We have instructions that we can send. It's on our main website under the employer tab. You could host an employer event. Maybe you want to put on one of those coffee chats, info sessions about your organization and positions you may have available. We are very open to that. You can also just email us with any questions. We can get you set up. We do have a mock interview event that we will be putting on in February and March. We're still solidifying plans, but we will be looking forward to that and sending out information, and an upcoming alumni networking night in February as well. More information to come there. Okay, so very open to any questions or comments that you all may have. But again, thanking you so much for the work that you do in mentoring our students. And so now I am pleased to introduce Tony Keck and Margaret Ebinger, who were connected through the Student to Alumni Mentoring Program last year. Tony currently serves as the Executive Vice President for Systems Innovation and Chief Population Health Officer at Ballot Health. He is an active alumnus of the Health Management and Policy Program. And as the incoming chair for the HMP Alumni Board and longtime mentor, he is committed to supporting students and the School of Public Health. Margaret is completing her Master's of Health Services Administration. She currently works as a volunteer doula at Lander Women's Health Hospital and as an administrative medical assistant at Forest Health in Ypsilanti. She will be joining Stanford Medicine Children's Health as the 23 to 25 Administrative Fellow. It's exciting, and thank you. Welcome, both of you. If we can start the discussion, we would love to hear a little bit about yourselves and what you had in mind going into the mentoring program. Why did you want to join the mentoring program?
Sure, and I'll kick it off and then quickly turn it over to Margaret. So, as Mariana mentioned, I'm the incoming chair of the Alumni Board, and I guess I started with the board maybe 5 years ago, and what I quickly realized was how energized I was by the students. We regularly get updates from the student associations about case competitions and other work they're doing, and it just became clear to me that I wanted to spend more time supporting the students, and that's really the main objective of the Alumni Board itself, is to make sure we're supporting students while they're in school and on their way to graduation. So when the opportunity to mentor came up, I knew that I wanted to spend some extra time doing that, and so this is my fourth year mentoring. And Margaret was my mentee last year, and I've got a new assignment this year. But I'll turn it over to Margaret, and she can talk a little bit about herself and why she joined the program.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. Well, I graduated in 2021 from Southern Methodist University and came straight from undergrad to grad school. And of course, I had my main interests set out in admin, particularly operations and strategy, but I really didn't know much beyond that. So for me, mentorship was really important in kind of defining that path. And I was also interested in the program because, as somebody who wants to pursue or enter a space in a health administration and not really having that background prior, it was so nice to get those real world experiences from Tony and hear about, what he does and get his advice, especially at, such a interesting time, as you're developing as a student and as a professional.
Well, Margaret, I remember when we met, one of the things I realized was how incredibly busy you were, and I think it's one of the things I've learned, I guess, over the past few years is as you're later in your career, although you're also busy, you have a lot more flexibility in your schedule. And what I realized is when you're at U of M, somebody else is making the schedule for you a lot of the time, and part of that effort was just us trying to figure out how to connect with each other and sort of get a cadence going, and we figured that out fairly quickly. But I think it's one of the most important things that folks can do from the start, day one with each other, is to really make sure just the simplest things related to logistics are all settled.
Yes, of course. And yeah, thank you. Tony was always so available and willing to meet, whenever he could, which was really awesome. I definitely think that the logistical part was one of the main challenges, but it was easy to overcome, with such a great mentor. As a student, especially with so many of the U of M students being super involved in the program and extracurriculars, clubs, volunteership, it's really important to have that base understanding, I guess, of that logistical kind of flow that needs to happen. But yeah, we were able to figure that out pretty quickly, and it was great.
Well,
Tony,
and yep, go ahead, please, Mary.
Oh, yes. So Tony and Margaret, you're mentioning the difficulty around schedules, but I'm wondering, how did you learn to work with each other? Were there any challenges during that time?
So I would say that it wasn't too challenging. I think that the main thing that students need to consider, and of course mentors need to consider, is planning and making sure that there's time ahead and kind of scheduling ahead, and planning around a time to meet and sticking to that time. And as a student, that was pretty easy to do. I think that was pretty easy for Tony to do as well. So there weren't too many challenges, really. It was just kind of that initial kind of figuring out what time works for everyone. And from there, it was smooth sailing.
Yeah, and I'd say that Margaret's pretty fearless, and so right from the start, we had a good rapport, and she was pretty clear about what it is that she needed to get accomplished. I think one of the things we need to understand is that that they have a sort of very set agenda related to internships and applying for internships and applying for jobs and applying for fellowships. And so a lot of the work that we do is helping get them prepared for that. And whether it's reviewing resumes or looking at applications, doing mock interviews, I really wanted to understand from Margaret where she really wanted to spend the most time. But the personal relationship was very easy. It's not always the case. As I said, this will be my 4th year, so I've had 3 other mentees. All of them have been terrific, but everybody has different personalities and ways of interacting. You might have language barriers. You might have just some personality differences. But in every case, I think devoting the time to each other, we got through all of those things.
Great. Really appreciated, Margaret, what you said about being fearless. Is there anything that Margaret or Tony that you did to make your meetings more productive or meaningful?
Yes, of course. And I guess I can start. One thing that Tony did that was just amazing is he is so encouraging and was really an uplifting force for me at a time where I was really unsure. As many first year students were this year or are this year, and were last year, we were definitely in a place where, we were unsure, unsure if this was the right path that we were going down, or if we were doing the thing that we were supposed to be doing. That timing aspect is huge when it comes to internships, and feeling like you're behind can be difficult. And then also, just wondering, do I have the right qualifications for the jobs that I'm applying? And I feel like Tony really, really stepped in to make sure, that I am doing the right things, like telling me, I am doing the right things. Here are the ways that I can improve, but here's what I'm doing right. All of those things were really, really, really helpful and inspiring to me, and kind of gave me the courage to step forward kind of into that interview process, which I was more unsure about.
Well, I love hearing that. And, I just think to that point, one of our roles is just, as a role of any type of coach or mentor, is really building on the strengths of the mentee. They're starting early career and they've had a lot of accomplishments, but they've got a lot in their own eyes to prove to the world yet. And so, I think all of us who've managed people or worked with folks or taught understand that starting off on the strengths is really important. And then once you develop that relationship, you can get into some more challenging conversations about presentation style, and about sort of digging in and a little bit more to how you want to prepare for an interview or how you want to present a resume. But it was a tough time too, because it was right in the middle of COVID, and if I remember correctly, you were still on sort of an all online type of class schedule, and so that was a tough time for y'all, and I think there'll always be something else, another pandemic, another surge, or another problem going on that we're going to have to remember that there's context surrounding all these conversations. It's not just all about school, and it's not all about healthcare. It's about students' lives.
Yes, I always.
Go ahead, Margaret. You're fine.
Oh, I was going to add that. Yeah, I always appreciated that you kept that in mind, Tony.
Yeah, it sounds like regardless of the busy schedules, that both of you had time to learn about each other's strengths and that you had a positive experience throughout all of this. So, we're wondering what was the most interesting thing that you learned either about each other, about kind of professional development, career exploration, anything like that?
Yes, of
I
course.
learned. Well, go ahead, Margaret.
Oh, no, you go ahead. That's fine.
Well, I learned I learned pretty early on that Margaret was studying to be a doula, and and then she now is a certified doula and has actually done a couple deliveries. I just you know uh, being able to connect with her on that level where she actually is going into administration and or maybe policy in the future or whatever, something that is not clinically focused. The fact that she was taking upon herself to get into some really volunteer work where she was laying hands on patients. That really led to a lot of interesting interactions between her and I, because I just think it's so important that administrators have some sort of experience like that. And so knowing that about her and connecting with her on that, I think added a lot of richness to our conversations.
Yes, and that was really special. And I also, really quickly want to add, when Tony and I were first meeting, that was before I even had trained. And when I was telling him about it, it was so exciting because he was like, "Yes, that's a great idea. We would love to see that. That's so important for your career, but also, a really good path." And that gave me a lot of confidence in the choice that I was making too. So, needless to say, it was very helpful to me kind of going forward in that journey. But I guess to kind of pivot over to what I learned, it was really special getting to learn more about Tony's role and get a firsthand account from somebody in a career path that I aspire to be in, especially as somebody who came with little experience in that area from undergrad straight to graduate school. But I also found it really important and interesting to learn about, all of the real world things that need to be included when you're considering your job applications and applying and interviewing. A lot of stuff that we went over was pretty basic, presence in an interview and making sure that my resume was tight and put together. And those things were all really helpful and actually contributed to my current experience interviewing for a fellow and then eventually landing that fellowship. So all of that was really, really helpful. And it was really great to learn, I guess, those basic aspects. And even though they are more basic, I think that they're so foundational to professional growth. And so I'm really thankful for Tony showing me all of those things.
Wonderful, thank you. So we actually have a question from the chat. We wanted to know, and we're going to start with Tony on this question. What advice would you give to a recent graduate, just graduated in 2022, who is starting to mentor a student? And then Margaret, if you have anything to add after Tony, it would be great to hear.
Well, I think every mentor-mentee relationship is a little bit different, but as a recent graduate, you've been through the things that, in my mind, through my experiences, are most on the mind of mentees. And I think Margaret talked about some of them. And it's really about transitions, right? It's about making sure those applications for internships in the first year and jobs or fellowships in the second year are tight and well done and practiced. There's something to be said for actually your recent experience, because I did mine 30 years ago and it was a whole different world, right? And so maybe I could give some advice that had the benefit of sort of 30 years of wisdom gained, but it was maybe a little less relevant than the advice that you're going to be able to give having just gone through it. And as Margaret has said several times, encouraging, everybody who's at Michigan is by definition someone who's already achieved an incredible amount. And so we know they can do the work. They're doing the work. They've already achieved a lot. And so, building that confidence for them going into, additional highly competitive environments. I mean, Margaret just got a fellowship at Stanford. It doesn't get much more competitive than that. helping them get ready for that and get prepared and feel comfortable, I think is really important. And I think your recent experience would be really helpful.
Yes, of course. And I just wanted to, echo that point of encouragement. Currently, I'm a second year class representative. And one thing that I've encountered with the first year students a lot is that fellowship applications, but also internship applications are getting earlier and earlier as they become more competitive with so many great programs around. And so I think that it will be really important to, I guess, consider that, make sure that right up front that encouragement is there. And just, to be advised that maybe that portion of, internship applications and stuff may come earlier on in the connection that you make with your student.
Great. Wonderful to hear. And yeah, I think regardless of being an alum that's a recent grad or someone who has more expertise, you all can add so much value to supporting students. So we have time for one more question. So we'd like to know what was most valuable to you about this experience, and we'll have Margaret start.
Yes, of course. So, like I said, that professional development and, getting to know Tony's role. But I think in addition, there was a lot of value in just, being around an industry professional. I feel like that helped with my professionalism. It helped with my communication. And like I said, it really brought out a lot of confidence in me that I could go on to achieve the things that I was striving for.
Well, and I'll say for me, I mean, all of us who are on this call probably understand how difficult it is to recruit high quality people these days, and many times you're getting to interact with folks just through a typical interview process at work, and being able to build a relationship over time with somebody who's going through the decision-making process about what do I want to do with my career, and what type of work do I want to do, and where do I go. I mean, it helps really keep me connected to what high quality students are thinking about these days, and makes it a little bit easier for me to find those students when I'm recruiting, develop them, and so there's a lot of value in that.
Fantastic. Wondering if you all have any other tips or any other kind of lasting comments before we kind of sign off with this discussion.
I guess a tip that I would have, I guess, is just don't be afraid to really get to know your mentee and really ask them about their interests. I think that they're really eager to share what makes them special and what brought them to public health with you. So I think that, as a foundation, that will be really important to move forward with just getting in there and learning their interests and sharing yours. And I think that if you do that, that's the perfect way to build a great foundation. Obviously, it worked for Tony and I.
I would have said the exact same thing, and so I don't have anything further to say.
Well, thank you both so much for that discussion. Mariana, thank you for leading that discussion. I continue to be so proud of the mentorship program, and grateful to all of you, both to you, Tony, and to the other mentors, and to you, Margaret, and the students who take advantage of this. So thank you both for being here tonight, and I'm thrilled that through the mentorship program you were able to connect. So that brings us to the end of our evening together. I continue to be and feel so fortunate to be part of this incredible community of public health leaders. And even tonight, I've learned so much from you. Thank you for your inspirational work, for your sincere commitment to serving others near and far, and for the many ways that you continue to support each other and those who will follow in your footsteps. I was thrilled to see a recent graduate will be mentoring next year. That's really terrific. And your support as alumni matters, whether that is responding to a few questions from a student about your current organization or industry, serving as a mentor, or making a charitable contribution. We appreciate all that you do to ensure that the next generation of public health leaders like Margaret are supported at Michigan Public Health. If you have any questions about the information shared tonight or the Student to Alumni Mentoring Program, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Development and Alumni Engagement team. And before we end tonight, I'd like to thank the team that worked on today's event, and especially my colleague, Tara Allendorfer, our Director of Alumni Engagement. Tara has developed the online mentorship program, and she's passionate about ensuring that our alumni feel connected to the school. So Tara, thank you for all your work, and again, to all of you for joining us. Thank you for what you're doing for the students of Michigan Public Health. With that, good evening and go blue.